Welcome once again to another episode of the Above Limits podcast with Sinbad and olympusMons. Today we're going to be covering the Dallas shooting. Well, our point of view on what we think happened and observed on those days. You have anything to say, Sinbad?
What is happening in the world?
What in the world is happening?
People going crazy.
That's true. That's true. To start off with, we had a week of deadly shootings across the nation. On a Tuesday, we had one man killed for selling CDs in front of a convenience store. The next day, we had a man killed live on Facebook Live or Periscope or wherever it was. And then the next day we had 11 officers injured. 5 of them died in Dallas and at the hands of a Black Lives Matter enthusiast.
Tragic, traumatic. Those are words that come to mind to describe these events, because not only did they happen in such a short period of time in succession, but they happened live on visible media, on social media that is just now blossoming into this new trending type of way to share things. And it catches you by surprise.
It didn't catch me by surprise. I'm pretty much, used to the angers in the world. Everybody's upset about something and have a bunch of maniacs out there loose, both on the police side and whether it's right or wrong, it exists. I mean, that's probably why God doesn't come and visit us and have any connection with people, because of everybody's crazy, messed up.
And I'm not surprised that you're not surprised, because after all, it was you and I think a couple other Texas residents that had a great discussion, starting with the Trayvon Martin incident. And from there leading into the whole Black Lives Matter movement all the way up until now. It's been a journey for us to where we're used to these events. We know all the details. We know all the holes that are missing. And when we see it, we feel as if, it's deja vu. We feel like this has happened before. Why aren't we learning from our mistakes? Something's a little fishy here. And that brings me to the conclusion that we might not be afraid of it. We might not be traumatized by it. But I feel as if a lot of our listeners and a lot of people out there, they are falling for it.
Yeah, I believe it all did start with Trayvon Martin. That's where my social justice attitude or perspective started, because I didn't believe that he should have been killed. I thought it was tragic. I felt for his family and friends, and every situation is different, where you have different events that happen, and you need to take them in one by one and understand. But here recently, going back to the Pulse nightclub shooting, the inconsistencies on that, and there's really have not been no update to whether the guy was gay or whether he was a terrorist. There's no real answer to that. Everything's been kind of passed on to this new event that happened, and the new problems, new shootings that are happening.
I feel like the way they transition from one mass shooting into the next is very, it's insensitive. It also desensitizes the entire population, because you're supposed to mourn and grieve for tragedies. You're supposed to feel something for a long period of time, like 9/11, right? We'll never forget, and now we forget within a matter of days. Mass shootings, tens to hundreds of people killed in different cities every day. And by the next 24 hours, we forgot about it. We moved on to the next one. And I don't think that that's a world that we can say we have a voice. That's a world where we don't have a voice. That's a world where what is dictated in the media, what is dictated as tragic, as emotional, it controls us. And we have very little time to actually adjust between the events.
People are on two major different sides. That's what these events cause. They cause people to be really either pro, social justice, being a compassionate, whatever, and then what other people call as racism. The division between between people's personalities. Conservatism and liberalism. You know what I mean? And that's the divide in the country that keeps on being multiplied and exponentially into hatred amongst each other. You know what I mean? Where violence is starting to spill out. You see it at Trump rallies, between clashes between Trump supporters and Bernie supporters,
Exactly. And I'd like to give a shout out to somebody that I never agree with. Not on one single topic will I agree with this person, except for this. And this person is Phantom. And when I've discussed certain things with him, we've always butted heads, but we can agree on one thing. And that is that a sign of America losing worldwide influence and power over the world, the true sign, the true litmus test is whether or not America focuses on foreign policies or domestic policies. And we always talked about the fact that as America becomes less and less of a superpower, as the United States of America becomes a less influential power in the world.
When I saw the man being shot, sorry, I don't know the names, but the man being shot at the convenience store by the police, I mean, it's sad to see that. You don't want to see people dying. And he did have a gun, right?
It's his last name is Castile. I don't know, but the headline on ABC News is how Castile told officer about gun was critical in final moments.
Yeah, he was a ex-convict that shouldn't have had a gun. That's it. That's the bottom line. The fact that that if he got found with a gun, that's an automatic 4 years in prison. Plus, on top of that, you're a repeat offender. That's even more. That's more time, dude. Like, the dude did not want to go to jail. That's why he put up a struggle. That's why he was shot. Bottom line.
Right. Again, it's a gun control issue. It is a domestic policy that shifts focus away from foreign policy into the domestic election year policy of whether or not we should have guns. Because if we look at the history of how many Black people have been assaulted by officers that were carrying illegal weapons, there's tons of them. And if we look at how many were caught on camera doing that, there's tons of them also. Because remember, cops have cameras in their cars, for years before this whole technological age came about. So there's no sense in denying that there is an agenda at hand. I completely agree with you. And I think a lot of our listeners also agree that this happens a lot more than we think it does. The only difference is that these news networks, they're sensationalizing it. They're using the graphic pictures and the graphic videos that are distributed through these new live video social networks. And they're using that as sensationalism to influence politics.
So you have where you could live in reality and what you see in front of you. You see a man getting shot. You see more police brutality on Black people, and that's reality. But then you see the psyop of what's happening, the psychological warfare that us seeing that and that being put onto social media within an hour, 2 hours, and be going viral, to trying to understand how is that affecting my aura, my self being, my soul. You know what I'm saying? And that's what all this is all about. So I do understand reality, and I believe that happened. You know what I mean? But when you think of the psychological warfare, you have to think beyond just seeing reality.
It is the worst kind of psychological warfare because it involves forcing people to witness a certain type of event that if they aren't prepared for it, it can damage them psychologically. Like you're talking about a war going on between, unseen forces. And the best analogy I can give you is the one that we all learned when we are kids in the first few times we went to church. They tell you the story of Abraham sacrificing his son, or they tell you the story of Abel sacrificing the best of his flock. It's a blood sacrifice ritual. It is a ritual that has been done here in the Americas long before it was colonized. The Aztecs, the Incas, the Mayans, they were all native peoples that hunted their own food. And when you became a certain age, it was well known in society to witness the killing of an animal for sustenance, for food. And it was a normal thing in your culture to witness such a sacrifice. Then in warfare, there were actual, witnessing of death between these tribes during tribal warfare. In today's day and age, we go to our supermarkets here in Texas. We go to the local HEB and we grab meat off of a shelf. We do not witness the horrid butchering of the animal. And it's not actually horrid. It's the way that we have to get our food. And the fact that people sensationalize the killings and those documentaries that show how animals are slaughtered and raised and how they have such a traumatic effect on people that watch them that they form nonprofit organizations to fight the system, to fight the whole establishment of farming, basically. So that entire agenda right there of forcing people to witness death and sacrifice before they're able to even process the idea, that is a psychological war. That is pushing the entire population into a state of fear. And that does something. It changes their mind on the choices that they make in daily life. Choices like how I'm going to take my route home, how I'm going to make my family safer, how I'm going to vote for the next president so that laws are passed. And that's the ultimate agenda, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's whether you want to be be part of the dark side or you want to be be a Jedi. It's just making that decision. The decision making process leads you to the end of how you're going to be at the end of life. Whether you're going to be a villain or you're going to be the superhero.
And the funniest thing about it, the corniest thing about it, is that the actual superhero is actually an anti-hero. They always say you're picking the best of two evils, right? I feel that an anti-hero, the archetype of an anti-hero in movies and films is actually very similar to an antichrist figure. It's seductive. It's a bad guy that's good, if that makes sense.
And most people want to be with demons and devils. You know what I mean? They'd rather be with demons and devils than gods and angels.
Like I said, the domestic issue is at hand now, and it proves that in order to stay relevant, America has to show that it's a winner. And they are losing in every foreign policy that they've tried. They've lost. In domestic policies, they've won, the gay marriage issue, and they're winning abortion issues. They're winning all the domestic policies. The American government is winning versus the people. The problem is, where does it end? Where does the line draw? Where do conservative Americans get refuge and sanctuary?
Let's talk about this second shooting. Okay. I have issues with this second shooting because, it happened the day after the what is it, Castile? The black man that was killed while his wife did the Facebook Live. To me, those are crisis actors. No matter how ghetto looking they are, and you know, whatever. To me, that looks fake. You have a woman who right next to her is her love, the person that she's married or boyfriend or whoever he is, dying. Now, if somebody's dying in front of me, like, I don't think I can handle that personally. I think I'd be hysterical. I think I'd be livid. You know, you might have to shoot me because I think I'd freak out. I'd be like, dude, you know what I mean? And it just, to me, looked like somebody doing a Facebook Live, but like, you know, where they're just kind of like sitting in front of their phone. You know what I mean? She's like, hello, people. I'm just on Facebook, and check this out. My boyfriend's dead. You know what I mean? This cop just shot him. And even the cop was freaking out. I think if he had a good case, which I'm pretty sure he does, I don't think he would be like, fuck, I just shot him. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it'd be like, you fucking move, I'm gonna shoot your ass too. You know, and the way that just all three people were, they looked like acting to me. And all this brings on what we're going to talk about next is the Dallas shooter.
Wait, just to keep my trail of thought, I do believe that the possibility of some of these events using crisis actors is entirely not only possible, but it's probable. But again, it's just to start the trend. Basically, Jimmy Kimmel, as part of his ongoing prankster persona, created a viral video in which a girl was twerking on camera, and she does a handstand, and she falls while twerking, crashes on a glass table, and it's all crazy. And it was a very funny video, but everyone thought it was real for the longest time, for weeks, until he brought her on his show and proved that she was actually a stunt woman. And for people not even to really, you know, understand that, even after he admitted that it was a prank, and people were still like, no, it was real. And after it was proven, it just goes to show that it is entirely possible to pull something like this off. If the actors are good at what they do, at their craft, they'll be able to convince you that that was a real event. And if they're able to convince you that was a real event, other people will be inspired by it, or be repulsed by it to the point where they retaliate. So all you have to do to create domestic discord to that level is create one or two staged events. And sooner or later, you'll have copycat events. And sooner or later after that, you'll have retaliation events. And that's exactly what you were bringing up, how the escalation from these shootings pushed the Black Lives Matter into a completely different direction with the Dallas sniper.
Yeah, you know, like I was saying, the reality, and then the psychological warfare. You know what I'm saying? There is reality to these events, and some parts of it are true, but you know, when something just doesn't seem right, you know, to me, seeing a woman and her husband's dying in front of her, and she's a black woman, you know what I mean, and her not freaking out, you know, like really freaking out.
And like you said, she did not offer any type of rebuttal. She did not raise her voice. She did not panic and start crying. She was not in shock. She was just simply focused on recording. She was very focused on capturing the footage. And I just don't think that's natural.
Exactly. Before we go into the Dallas shooting, let's talk about the desensitizing that we're dealing with. Like, even amongst conservative white America versus you know, the ghetto minorities across the United States. You have even the conservative whites. They're getting to the point where they will kill. They will kill if they're if people are you know, trying to oppress them, especially, you know, thug ghetto people. You know what I mean? Blacks, Mexicans, etc. And what this leads me to think is some form of the purge is possible. You know, these films that are B or D list movies or whatever becoming reality, where you would have, you know, a day where people could kill each other and it'd be all right, or, you know, days of justified war between these two divided points of view, Black Lives Matter and people that could give a shit about Black Lives Matter, you know, and what the world would be then.
Every great civilization is known for their entertainment value and its correlation to brutality and death. And the best examples we have are, you know, stories from the gladiators in the Colosseum, stories from the natives of the Americas that would play sports, and their greatest athletes would play for their lives. The losing team would sacrifice their team captain. Could you imagine if this NBA playoff, if LeBron James at the end of the fourth quarter, instead of sitting down, crying, and hosting a trophy, took Curry and chopped his head off in front of the whole world? Like, could you just imagine that concept? And it sounds crazy, right? It sounds crazy, but this is what people were doing long ago. And we have evolved into a type of society that no longer allows that to happen because of certain issues with, you know, capitalistic societies. And the whole case in point, if you kill an all-star athlete, you're losing millions of dollars in income. So there's a certain reason to keep them around to make that money. The society will then evolve further into a way where we can still have that type of entertainment, but without the loss of the investment.
No, it makes total sense. But what about the purge? The idea of the purge as a form of it becoming reality here in the near future, and to me, it's close to the end of Barack Obama's presidency, and this is what conspiracy theorists have been talking about ever since. You know, and you know, what we were talking about a couple of days ago. We haven't uploaded that video, but it's soon to be uploaded, about Hillary being the whore of Babylon. You know, putting it right in her hands for this chaos, this need for policing, and the police are starting. They have military uniforms, but they have the word police on them, so therefore it's allowed by law.
As Barack Obama is leaving office, one of the things that all analysts have agreed on, the left, the right, they all agree on one thing, and that is Obama has greatly reduced the influence and power of the United States and how they stand as a superpower. What that means for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump is that the next president that steps into office will be leading a very weak nation, meaning they will be a weak, or perceived as a weak, leader. And where does that leave Obama? That leaves him as a great leader, even though, in our opinion, because we lived in the same time as his rule, he was a pretty crappy leader. But in the eyes of those who come after us, the future generations, they will look back on this as a turning point in American civilization, where you had these great presidents, and then after Barack Obama, everything went downhill. And it's not just because he's black. It's not because Hillary is a woman. It's not because Donald Trump isn't a politician. It is because they are setting us up for something. What that something is, we will discuss in other videos, but we are seeing the symptoms of it. We are seeing the gun law. We are seeing the changes in society. We are seeing trends that are leading us to maybe, like you said, a purge or a type of solution to give people gratification so that it's not sought out in such randomness, so that is at least controlled and policed to a certain extent. And if somebody's going to usher in that new age, who better to do it than Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump? Everyone who's looking at these candidates are saying, I don't know which one I'm more afraid of, and they're not joking.
Yeah, but when I talk about the purge, I'm talking more of like what are the type of people that watch that? Young people that are, the it'd be more likely that it'd bring more violence, where it'd be like, I saw something on that there was like 3 black teens that were trying to steal guns to attack the Baton Rouge Police Department. I mean, we're dealing with people like that were more influenced by what they see on TV and on television and in their music and stuff that don't have anything going for them other than hatred and ignorance towards the rule of law and authority and compliance and the federalist government that we live in. You know what I mean? So they're gonna be more in tune to cause violence, and then therefore the conservative white America has bigger guns. They're like, they have bigger guns, more ammo, and it's going to cause war, and people are going to be desensitized to say, you know what, I don't agree with this, and they're going to fight each other.
You hit it right on the button. That is what most historians believe actually happened. Like when I go back and I look at the Civil War in America, that was the purge. That they were literally in the South breeding black people like they were animals, like farm animals. They were breeding them, killing off the ones that they didn't want, treating them like animals, actually keeping them in stables, and just the breaking down human beings to that level is no different than a purge. And I feel as if when you start doing that, there will be a class of people opposite of your views that have no fear, that have values and morals that they stand for, and they will stand against you to the highest level of leadership, meaning generals and politicians, and it will split a nation in half to the point where there's civil war. One side will win. That government will be in power then until another purge type event comes up. And the way that I've seen it happen is evolution. It's always been a steady evolution. Oh, who do we kill? Well, we kill the people who don't speak our language. Okay, we'll kill them. We'll kill the Native Americans or the Mayans and Aztecs. And then after that, it's like, okay, who do we kill next? Well, let's kill the people that don't look like us. Okay, so they start the whole racism thing. Okay, what's next? Well, let's kill all the people who aren't sexually attracted to the same people as us. So let's kill all the gays. And then you have all the hate crimes against gay people of the 90s. It's a steady evolution of the same question. Who do we kill next? And it's purge after purge after purge until, we get to the point where it doesn't matter who we kill, as long as somebody dies, and we get to watch, it'll eventually come to that point. And I pray that, I'm not here to see it.
Well, that's the reason why I want Trump to be in office, because it's just going to be, I think he'll do good. I have this ongoing little troll that I do in chat rooms. And like the other day I was on Tiny Chat, and there's a guy, you can obviously see he's from East LA, right? And you ask him, he's like, yeah, I'm from East LA. You know what I mean? Like the hard part of town. He had this big ass like Colt revolver, fucking Dirty Harry fucking revolver pointed at the thing. And I told him, hey dude, it's my troll that I do. It's just to be funny. I said, bro, when Trump builds that wall, you're going to be the first one to go, man. You know what I mean? Because And I was like, you're probably second generation, third generation immigrant. You know what I mean? He's like, second generation. I was like, well, you're that's the reason, man, because you motherfuckers are out of control. You know what I mean? And they're gonna put you back in Mexico, dude.
It's almost as if Trump emulates all the past quote unquote purges. He emulates all of American history at its worst. Going against black people, going against Muslim people, going against Hispanic people. It's like he's reminding the population of how many people have been oppressed here and how he's going to continue that tradition, but he's doing it for reasons that are considered justifiable, right? It's considered acceptable. So that's the dangerous part about it, that he could convince somebody like me and you that a policy for against illegal immigration is actually a good thing, because we do live in Texas, that it's a good thing for us. And I, for one, do agree that his policies are in fact valid and they have great points to them. And that's a dangerous thing, to have someone intelligent agree with someone who clearly comes off as a psychopath. So it just goes to show that no matter how intelligent or how normal certain people like you and I are, to some extent, we even identify with the policies of people who are committing America to these acts of violence, or to these acts that will one day lead to violence.
That need to be addressed. Now let's talk about this Dallas shooting. There was a lot of inconsistencies in the first reporting of it, and one could just say, well, that's just the media running wild with the story. But the media needs to take, it's an ongoing investigation to just put out their information as soon as they get it without any type of verification. And I was talking to Rob Swift from the Executioners on Facebook. He was posting something about the two two African snipers from like a couple years back. And he was saying how basically he was comparing it to now to because the first reports were saying that they had two snipers taking out cops. And I told him, look at what the media is putting out there. They're putting this one picture of a man. They're saying this is the prime suspect of the Dallas shooting. It was a man who was a black man in camouflage, looked like The Rock, but when you actually talk to him, is probably just a typical Dallas black man. You know what I'm saying? They're putting him out there as the prime suspect, and he is open carrying because you can do that in Texas, and you had 20 people who were open carrying at that protest, legally. And all of a sudden you have automatic gunfire and multiple snipers, shooting. And then it turns out to be only one guy. But let me just continue to say that the media was saying that this is the prime suspect. And Rob Swift told me, well, I'm watching MSNBC. I don't know what channel you're watching, and you need to watch your conspiracies. I was like, listen, this is psychological warfare. All right. People are dumb. People are dumb. They don't know civics. They don't know how our government's set up. They've never taken a government class, and they're trying to compile all this information in their head, and it's all misinformation stating that this guy's the prime suspect, and that's what the internet said. That guy's the prime suspect, and everybody on the internet is saying, "Oh, look at that! That's the Dallas shooter." Turns out he was nothing. He gave his gun to the cops. You know what I mean? He gave it to him because he wasn't shooting at nobody. He was just open carrying. And that's basically what this all boils down to is trying to, Texas just passed the open carry laws, and it's all about gun control.
And I really hate jumping down the rabbit hole with conspiracies at this day and age, with the whole, oh man. Okay, before I go any further, I have to give a disclaimer. A lot of the conspiracies that I give, I don't know about how you feel about this, but a lot of the things that I bring to light, I don't do it as a heroic deed or as a way to enlighten the masses or as even a thing for changing the population. I only do it because I enjoy knowing things. I have fun reading Wikipedia, and that's just a weird habit of mine, just to gain knowledge, not even for the sake of argument, but just for my own peace of mind, just to know things as they truly exist in truth. And I in no way think that, for example, if I was to be shot right now by a sniper, someone could say, "Oh, he was martyred." If someone killed Alex Jones on live cam, the whole world would say, "Oh, it's true. All the conspiracies said were true. The government killed him," and that would be in most people's minds as it is now. But truth be told, in my own personal opinion, if someone came and assassinated me right now, or even better yet, if it was a famous person, someone assassinated them, and that person had extreme views against the mainstream, no one would care. No one would say, "Oh, the masses won't say, 'Oh, he's a martyr.'" The masses, the majority of the people, won't even bat an eyelash. And I just have 3 simple letters to prove my case in point. This is Texas. This is Texas, and this is Dallas we're talking about. We are talking about Dallas, Texas. And I don't know about you, but there's only 3 letters that come to mind that end this entire conversation, and that is JFK.
Great point. Great point, bro. What about the fact that the police reportedly, everybody saw 2 snipers, but it turned out to be this one man, and the police detained or arrested 4 suspects, and they never said who those people were. They never said what race they were. All we know is that they were let go, and the final verdict was one guy did this whole thing.
Anytime there are these questions as to why isn't this case solved, or why was it solved so quickly, anytime you have to ask those questions and answer them, it just goes to show that this is not, if it's a court case, you have to prove someone is guilty beyond any reasonable doubt. It also applies to the general idea, to the general idea that if there's so many questions, then there's doubt. If there is doubt, this is a cold case. It's not a closed case. It's still open. We still have to answer enough questions to fulfill the population's inquiries. We have to let the masses know enough to give them a peace of mind. But they're not doing that. And the more we catch on to it, the more these events happen back to back, sooner and sooner, and we're distracted by the next event the next day. And that again brings it full circle. What we see now is nothing. What we're seeing now is nothing compared to what is to come. In terms of death, human death, death of life, period, animals, plants, ocean life. Climate change is going to kill millions of people. Right now, seeing just hundreds of people die in 1 second, a bomb going off, hundreds of people dead. That is nothing compared to what is in store for us if climate change happens. Millions of people will die. So in a sense, I feel that the governments of the world are almost unintentionally prepping us for that.
Now, I was watching the press conference when the police chief was putting on his press conference the first time, and I'm thinking to myself, where do I know this guy from? I've seen him before, okay, and I couldn't put my head on it. I couldn't grasp the idea. But then I watched the video, and semi all right conspiracy YouTuber mentioned a name in an event, very very small, but nobody's mentioned this event at all amongst any of the conspiracy people. And I'm like, this is relevant. You know, in June of 2015, James Boulware went on a rampage in Dallas. He bought an armored van, a van that he made turrets out of, where he could shoot his semi-automatic rifle, and he went on a rampage and shooting the police headquarters in Dallas, Texas. The same. If you look at the videos, it's the same background. It's like the Grand Theft Auto in real life. And there, I mean, if you listen to the gunfire and compare it to the most recent Dallas shooting to when James Boulware went on his rampage, it's so identical. And I remember that's why I was like, I remember that police chief having his press conference again on that time. Now, they say the James Boulware, the white man who had the armored van, they say what caused him to break down and to become homicidal and have a vendetta against the government, the police department, was that they took his son away. That it was a custody dispute. And automatically when he had a custody dispute, he went all the way to buy an armored van, learn how to make explosives, and, you know, went on this rampage. And if you compare it to the Dallas shooter, it's the same MO. It's that the Dallas shooter, he graduated high school and then went into the military. And his military records show that he'd only had basic marksman training, and that he had no demolitions training at all. But here recently, he's living with his mom, a veteran, you know, of being in Afghanistan, probably suffering from PTSD, which makes it on the reality level that I'm talking about, where he is suicidal. He does have a grievance. He probably is harassed for being a black man and sees black people dying, where that's reality. You know what I mean? But he automatically, he can make explosives, and he has this tactical training where he's doing these. I've talked to some pretty mean ex-military, and they say he did some moves, man. He did some fucking military tactic special forces moves on those police officers. And when the police officers came, none of them, you would think as a coordinator of a hostage situation or something, you would make your perimeter, right? Okay, you don't know he has armor plating on his body armor, so you would assume that he does, and therefore you would get your SWAT, who would have armor, and then bulletproof helmets with high-powered rifles to match him. Instead, they have regular beat cops with no armor, being blood sacrificed to take on this guy who was a basic marksman in the military.
It makes sense. It does. It really makes sense, because I've never had experience with a rifle. Most people in Texas have experience with handguns. But the rifle is more of a sacred weapon of war, especially the ones used since the Cold War till now, assault rifles. The sniper rifle is probably in a class of its own, where the type of training you would need to have that type of accuracy would include months and months of breathing exercises, and controlling muscle twitching, and controlling your breathing and controlling your movements while under huge adrenaline rush. Because if you've ever been to a gun range, you know that when the adrenaline kicks in, especially the first few times that you go, it's hard to keep your hand from shaking to hit the target. And just to imagine being that close to a target with a handgun, shaking and missing horribly, and then to multiply that by the distance that a sniper has, that any subtle shake or movement from adrenaline or anything like that, without knowing how to breathe properly, without knowing what type of medication snipers use in the military. They use all sorts of muscle relaxers and different types of medications to control themselves when they're being shot at. So it's very fishy. It's very odd that to hear that somebody isn't, a war hero with many years and many kills under his belt, that he was able to do such a thing. I mean, I have heard of certain athletes that can play NBA level or NFL level that have never played a lick of sports in college or above, but they're just as good as pro athletes, but they are rare. They are very rare. They're like 1 in a million. And, for this guy to be that 1 in a million, it's kind of unlikely. So either he, just logically looking at it, between the time he left till now, he's been training. He's been keeping himself in shape. He hasn't lost anything. He's just added on top of it and not told anyone, or the people that know about it haven't stepped forward yet. Or, as you proposed, there might be more to this guy than they're telling us, and maybe he did have a certain training, and maybe it's a cover up and a conspiracy to that extent.
Well, the fact that they didn't. My friend, he's a firefighter, and he's also a member of the SWAT team, because he's not a part of the police department, but he's part of the SWAT team because he's an ex-Army Ranger. You know what I'm saying? So you would think that there's no other. I'm pretty sure there's a majority of police officers in the Dallas Police Department that are handgun enthusiasts or gun enthusiasts in general that have ex-military training that could have taken on this guy. Now, the thing is, I don't think you saw the video of him executing the cop. He did this fucking move, man. The cop's coming up trying to sneak up on him. He sees him and then does this like fucking juke move and is like fucking there, pop, 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 and then pops him in the head one last time. You know what I mean? It was very, yeah, you could say that's he just got lucky, but no, there was some type of technique to his gunplay.
And the move he pulled in that video is exactly what I've seen when I'm on the paintball fields. I can't do moves like that, but I've seen people show up to the paintball range or the paintball fields, and they come wearing military tactical clothing. They come with they don't have the normal paintball guns. They come with like the military looking weapons that are airsoft, or it's a different type of game, but they play it in the same on the same location, and they practice all those moves and they move like he moved. So I know that civilians have outlets that are legal where they can practice this and no one would think twice about it. Those moves that he did do show that he's an enthusiast. He's somebody that gets an adrenaline rush from training, from doing those types of things. So I'm not denouncing the conspiracy. Okay. All I'm saying is that this guy obviously had mental illness to a certain degree. We all have mental illness, but he had certain things happen to him in his life, like the earlier guy you mentioned who was had his custody battle and he lost. That a lot of these shooters of mass shootings have that switch, that one trigger, that one event that pushes them over the edge. They've had enough, and they use all of their past craftsmanships, all their past training. And in his case, as a military or as ex-military, he used his tradecraft.
But the fact that the background to the June 2015 shooting the police headquarters, and then it just the location being Dallas, Texas, and then the same police chief who people are looking at as like shady. They want him to resign. They've been wanting him to resign. They had 40 officers leave the department. They had to bring in the I believe the Texas Rangers and some FBI to fill positions in the Dallas Police Department. And the way these cops were sacrificed, man, you know what I mean? You know, rule 101, set a perimeter. Okay. You have the perimeter, you know where the suspect is. Nobody can get in, nobody can get out, you know? And the fact that they were outmanned, they were outarmed by one man with a semi-automatic rifle. You know, they would, if you have a good coordinator, emergency response coordinator or whatever, the person given the commands, and he says, just try to take him out. I mean, you got to think the blood sacrifice that happened on that day, you know, as far as like, you know, dark orders and the Illuminati and stuff like that, you know, the people that the orders of death, you know what I mean, that allowed, you know, the America's finest or whatever be killed, you know, just like that. And 11 of them injured, 5 of them dead.
We are talking about an order of death that existed in World War II. It was called the Thule Society, the Thule Society. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Thule, Thule. And everyone knows about this because everyone knows how evil of a man Hitler was. Everyone knows, every proud American knows that.
The Thule. Thule?
Yeah, exactly. That society. And that America finally entered the war and came to the aid of, and along with the British and Russians, we destroyed the greatest nemesis of the free world, Hitler and his Nazi regime, whose highest order was the SS and whose many members were part of an occult order. And this isn't some conspiracy. This is something that's actually true. It's in our history books. And their order was the order of death. And they exterminated people ritually. They created concentration camps. Like, we're used to it because we studied it. But imagine you didn't have the concept of a concentration camp. The idea of migrating an entire group of people into a facility in lines, like how people would go to Disney World, and you would go there and wait in lines and wait for days and be processed and go through different stations until you were killed. It was a facility designed for ritualistic sacrifice.
Their body parts were used for like soap and different things like that. You know what I mean? Their fat was used for soap and making lampshades and shit like that, dude.
Yes, identical twins were the case studies that we have today for psychoanalysis of identical twin studies. A lot of that came from former Nazi scientists that were doing it over there. The idea of cremating the body or burning the body was believed to prevent one from attaining a higher level in the afterlife. That the idea of sacrificing a body through burning it was an insult to the Jewish people at that level. And for Hitler and them to exterminate them in such a way as to gas them and then to burn the bodies to where there was a constant flume of smoke, you know, ashes falling, raining constantly. The place smelled like death and decay. That is very reminiscent of the ancient empires of Rome and Greece. And, you know, they used to take, they had the iron bull, right? That was hollowed out. And they would put a person inside it and they would light hot coals underneath it. And you would be basically cooked alive. But the engineering of the bull was made to where your screams come out like a bull sound, like an animal sound. So it wouldn't sound like the screams of death. It would sound like just like normal sounds. And they would desensitize the masses to the ritualistic sacrifice of a human being. And they were very inventive with it. They were very creative. And all I'm trying to say is, to wrap this up, is that Hitler was creative with it as well. And the order of death is a real thing. And if it still survived until this point, if it really was a clandestine organization and it's still, in fact, in operation, then I'm not surprised that people are ritually killed to this day. Like if you told me you found a group of people that call themselves the order of death and they were doing these things, I would believe it. But I'm not saying that that's what's going on in America now. I'm just letting Americans know that I'm letting them know that we know that it's happened in the past before.
So the last topic to discuss about the Dallas shooting is the fact that they got RoboCop to kill him. They got a robot to go in there and blow him up and evaporate him.
I was stunned, pure stunned. I thought it was a joke. I thought I was reading like the Onion News. I thought it was one of those satirical articles, like what is it? The movie Short Circuit, Johnny Number 5. Like when I read it, I had the image of the robot from Short Circuit.
Yeah, that makes sense. The robot from, well, that's what they wanted to do. That was the joke of Johnny 5. Is he was supposed to be some type of cop? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it was so long ago that I watched it, but it's just so funny that we are, like you said, it's a psyop. We are conditioned to read the news and read the headline of how they got him with a robot, with a bomb delivered to him that detonated, and he died by death by explosion. The last time I read that in a news report was the North Korean news report where Kim Jong-un, the newly elected supreme leader of North Korea, executed a high-ranking member, and he executed him with death by mortar blast. They dropped a bomb on a guy to kill him, as a type of way to execute him in a controlled manner. To just put those two articles in my head together, if I were a lesser intelligent being, and if I didn't know any better, I would say something along the lines of the Americans have to be similar to North Koreans in order to police themselves.
Well, they didn't show the body of Osama bin Laden. I did see a picture of the bomber or the sniper dead from the bomb blast. But it's another one of those things. Like really, you couldn't take out one guy. You know what I mean? You couldn't five officers with assault rifles. You couldn't go over there and apprehend them. You know what I mean? Send them like three canines and just go to town on them until you know what I mean? Like you had to blow them up.
Hashtag House Bolton.
Why do you say that?
Oh, unleash the dogs.
Oh, okay. I get you. I mean, nobody wants to see their canine that they train and stuff die and be sacrificed. But I mean, wouldn't you want information? Wouldn't you want to know why he did this and what his motive was? It'd be him better being alive than dead.
It's just like I said about the whole seeing the news article reminding me of us resorting to tactics used by North Koreans. It's because society has evolved in warfare. Right now, the way terrorism works, forget the word terrorism, right? Just think of the word war, right? War in general. The way warfare is now is if you want to beat up on a superpower nation like Britain or France or the United States or Australia, or Russia, you basically have to resort to what they now call terrorist attacks in order to leave any impact to where they feel as if they've lost something and they need to come fight you. You have to resort to those type of tactics. So it's no surprise that warfare in a domestic sense in America has become the same, to where cops are using terrorist tactics, right? Is that not what they're doing, to where they're the terrorists now, planting explosives to catch someone off guard
It's more like a
like
drone. It's more like a drone attack, actually, rather than.
yeah, you're exactly right. Like I consider drone attacks also as a response to terrorism. As you know, they got the whole image of a man wearing the full blast armor going in to defuse the bomb. And then later on, you know, we know now that they have robots they send in to do that first. So yeah, I feel that that's that whole culture of sending in specialized shielded humans or specialized robots or drones or Johnny Number Five. It's all a response to the escalation of warfare to where it's become, you know, labeled as terrorism. The only way we could fight terrorism now is with terrorism, apparently.
You know, and we live in capitalist society. You know, there's entrepreneurs out there seeing that with engineering backgrounds going, hey, you know, we can collaborate with you know what I guess DARPA is doing, where they had there was that one company where they had like little pig robots and stuff like that, and with the things that Google's doing, and know that this is marketable, that cops are they want the next step and bringing forth like a Terminator type reality against high profile, you know, criminal suspects.
Yeah, I thought the greatest hint at that I saw in a film, the next leap in warfare was Jurassic World. I don't know if you've seen it at the end, the concept of using of a private militarized company, InGen. In Michael Crichton's books, InGen is like the Microsoft of biotechnology, of cloning at that point, at this day and age. And they own all the patents on all their property. So they're genetically engineering the greatest predators ever existed on Earth, basically Utah raptors, which they call velociraptors in the film. And they use them, or they want to militarize them and take the best zoologists and to come study them, and not even use them to make money in a theme park, but to come and bring in the best people to see if these predators can be trained somehow, if they can be genetically engineered somehow to be controlled, to use them in warfare. And the guy from InGen in Jurassic World says one line, and I can't remember it exactly, but it sent chills down my spine, where he made a reference to, he said, imagine like a pack of these in Afghanistan or in a war that America's fighting. No, you know, the concept of that sent chills down my spine. It reminded me of the Transformer movie where you have the U.S. soldiers in the desert, and then a giant scorpion monster alien comes out of the ground, and the scorpion alien just annihilates them. No chance in hell. So that's, in my opinion, you know, science fiction is always the prelude to science. And I always felt that if we cannot genetically engineer these monstrous dinosaurs or these alien type or control alien type technology or species, that we will resort to what we know, and we will develop technology, as you said, right? Like create the next Terminator, to create artificial intelligence that we can control.
Well, I'm not even really talking about artificial intelligence. I'm talking about, you know, just a joystick and a controller to operate, you know, with cameras and operate and take out targets. You know, how hard is it to get something to point with a cursor and shoot something? That's a major threat with superior accuracy too. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's that hard. And I know there's entrepreneurs out there that are seeing this and saying, you know, we need to, I can do this, and we need to put this out to market. So, you know, number one, they can build on the technology, but then collaborate and also get paid. There's a market for it.
Oh yeah, the developers for the new gaming platforms. Basically, there's two lead research groups that are creating the frictionless it's like a round little platform that you stand on, and whatever direction you walk on it with socks, your character in the game moves in that direction. And they're using it to create first-person shooter simulations where you use a HUD. The heads-up display that they use, I think, right now is the, oh my god, Oculus Rift. Is that what it's called? Oculus? I think that's one of them. You know, a lot of these companies are creating the heads-up display for military purposes, and that's why we don't really see a consumer-grade heads-up display. All the consumer-grade ones that you can buy now, they suck. They're just not developed, and that's just the way military superpowers are. They put 100% of their technology, of their power, into their military might, and not into the public sector. If you look at American cars suck compared to Japanese, German, and Italian manufactured cars, right? That is because Italy, Germany, and Japan lost the World War, and all their military geniuses that were developing these things, this technology for warfare, for all that stuff, they were no longer allowed to do that. So all those great minds were redirected towards the public sector, and their public sector vehicles and stuff were all superior. And America kept its military might. If you look at all our military jets and our vehicles, way superior in terms of compared to the stuff that public, you know, compare a military grade Hummer, even a 10-year-old Hummer, to the public sector Hummer, the H2 or whatever it is, you know. And it's very obvious that there's a trade-off there.
Well, the last thing to cover is the fact that the guy was evaporated. He's no longer, I mean, nobody's talked about his funeral. Nobody said, oh, he was laid to rest, or he went, you know, the family had it's just like he just disappeared. You know, I guess they want to keep that private, but you know, when you kill 5 officers and injure 11, the public has a right to know what happened to you afterwards. And the fact that, you know, that we never saw Osama bin Laden's corpse, and they didn't take Osama bin Laden in, you know, they just killed him, put a bullet in his head, and then that was it. You know, no other information, knowing whether he acted alone or what caused him, if he belonged to any groups. They could just get that information from his computer and his cell phone, you know.
So there is no body then. It's just like
no. I've seen the picture of him dead in the rubble. Yeah, I've seen it, but why blow him up? Why not just send in some dogs or get some guys, some your best men to go take this guy on? Tell him, hey, we're gonna give you as much armored, you know, bulletproof, whatever, to take this guy on and get the job done.
I just had a realization. Did you say that did you mention the police chief or the guy in charge of this case was also in charge of the previous one or something like that?
Yes, he was.
Okay. So it's understandable to come to a conclusion saying that maybe this police chief was triggered psychologically and PTSD or something kicked in, and he turned into a full-blown terrorist. Because if you look at terrorism in the Middle East, a lot of the researchers in the CIA say that terrorists usually pull off a terrorist act after they're triggered by an event that happened to them where foreign occupiers came in and murdered people that they loved. So I could see that applying here where, like I said, I have this realization. If it was the same police chief, that he was triggered to all the loss of those family members of his from the previous incident, and he in turn became a terrorist, for lack of a better term. I hate to word it like that, but he reacted in a way and made a decision, I guess, because I guess he's the one in charge, right? He was the one to ultimately give the go-ahead for Johnny Five to go in.
I don't know if he was the one that gave the go-ahead, but the chain of command would say that he is.
Yeah, then I would say that there's a high chance yeah, that he was in fact triggered by the previous event.
So with that, I believe we said everything that we had to say on the Dallas shooting and the previous officer involved shootings against Black people. This podcast is a little longer than the last couple, but there's a lot of information that we got to get out, and I've been wanting to make this video for over a week as the informations came out, collecting and compiling in my brain and Sinbad's brain, and to come formulate our opinions. And so that's why this podcast is a little bit more winded. But once again, this is the Above Limits podcast. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. That's the number one goal, is to spread this word. And visit our social media. Also, we have our Patreon page up. We're soon to have more perks. We've been discussing what we're going to be doing. One perk we've decided on is being able to interact with us on private hangouts. That'd be $5. $5 Patreon monthly donation or whatever, and you'll be able to interact with Sin and also myself. And that's pretty much it for us. You have anything else to say, Sin?
I think you covered most of it, but in conclusion, Texas is something that we talked about in our previous podcasts, and I may have edited some of it out, but we always mentioned that when these events have happened in other areas, that everything was just out of balance. And if it was to ever happen in Texas, that the way Texans are, they would handle the situation by killing the gunman before he did too much damage. And I think in the last cases that we've had, as bad as it may seem, all these acts of terrorism in Texas, as bad as it seems, I still think that the events in Texas were still controlled very well, with less death than if they were to have occurred in another state. So I do believe that the position of gun control should not change in this state. And that's my only final thought. Thank you for listening. Like Olympus said, please tell people about the Patreon page, because that is how we are going to be able to interact with our listeners. That's the only way we can talk to you and answer your questions.
That's what's up. This is the Above Limits podcast. Y'all stay tuned to future episodes, and y'all have a good day.